Okay, come to case scenario one. We had a couple who had inability to conceive since 3 years. They're married, they're unable to conceive since 3 years, and day two of the periods, the male was 31 years of age and female was 30 years of age. They wanted to, this is a time when there was a COVID era going on around 3 months back. The couple wanted to take some treatment and they were in a hurry. There was a lockdown period and they wanted to utilize this period for this treatment. They would have gone to multiple doctors before. They had taken multiple drug therapies. This wasn't working for them. But overall, it was a fully worked up case, and so they went to a gynecologist, and they told them they want to undergo some sort of treatment. There was no female factor. Husband was not worked up as per the wife. Rest all female was perfectly fine, and they had no other problem per se, barring the husband was not worked up properly. So female was NAD, male on examination had normal testicular volume, there was no swelling, no varicocele, no hernia. So clinically the male was fine, he had no problem. So the gynecologist did the semen analysis on day two. She or he found that volume is 1.5 ml, the count is 5 million, NP is 10 and IM is 80%. There were no sperms which were having a progressive motility, no pulses were seen, semen morphology looked normal, semen culture was negative. This is a scenario in the month of March or April this year, and gynecologists initiated the cycle with letrozole and HMG. Monofollicular growth was observed, gave the trigger and did the IUI. On the day of IUI, the sample was 2 million active sperms was what they obtained. IUI was done and luteal support given. Here we have a case which came with very low sperm count. They were in a hurry. They wanted to utilize the period of COVID and they underwent an IUI. 2 million sperm count. IUI was done. Result came negative. They came back to the doctor and said, no, now we're in a hurry. Please do it again. So doctor also wanted to help them. They did another IUI that failed. 2 IUIs failed back to back. Now the couple is advised to undergo IVF or sperm donation. 2 options were given to the couple. So I would like to ask any one of you to open the innings. Did we approach the case correctly, or did we have any more options? I think we can start with Dr. Fesi.
I think first of all, we have to see the proper history itself, whether they were having proper intercourse, whether they're trying normally, or they were trying only on ovulation day. Some people try like that because there will be a lot of abstinence. That history about sexual history is most important. Then proper after one semen analysis is there, we have to repeat that usually.
Very right. Very right.
But if the couple is in a hurry, then also we have to properly examine the male to know whether there is any correctable condition is there, like varicocele or any hydrocele or phimosis, anything is there. And after that, in patients with the progressive motility is almost nil, then we have to see the hormonal evaluation in those cases to know whether how far the testicular function is affected. And if the hormonal evaluation is normal, provided everything else is normal, then we can give a course of antioxidants and then proceed accordingly. So then usually we have to counsel the patient. We have to give some time to know whether it will be effective. It may not be effective in most of the cases, but we can give a trial. But if the couple is in a really hurry, then only we have to go for a IUI in those patients. Even if you are going for ovulation induction, better to always give a gap in between, not to go for a back-to-back cycle in those patients. That's what I feel. And regarding the total motile sperm concentration, that is most important than this. That is how far the TMSC is there. Usually, even though some studies tell the cutoff as 5 or 3, but I prefer even if it is TMSC is 3, we can go ahead with IUI, but we must counsel the couple with that. And regarding now, there is investigation of DNA fragmentation is there, but that whole thing I prefer to do it only in those patients who are not relieved with antioxidant therapy, because even if it is a DNA fragmentation, we have to give a trial of antioxidant. If not correct the varicocele or associated lesion, if not relieved, then it is an indication to go for an ART. So that systematic evaluation is not done then we have to counsel the patient. Even if you do the IVF, the success rate is not more than 50%. That is the how we have to counsel and take the couple in confidence. That's what I feel.
Thank you so much, Fesi. Now, let's look at a hypothetical situation that we agree that sperm count was low and the gynecologist was in a hurry to help the patient, and so we didn't get a good result. Well, let's assume that everything which we wanted to do has been done. We have given probably some antioxidants, we have done counseling, we have given them all sort of drugs, but still we get a patient which has got a high number of immotile sperms. I'd like to ask Dr. Parsuram, in case we decide to go in for IVF and we have no progressive sperm, majority are immotile, we don't know whether they're alive or dead, and you have to do an IVF. How would you approach this case?
You're talking about ICSI or see, there are two basic issues that we're looking at. Are we looking at absolute acinospermia, like wherein you have 100% immotile sperms? We have different strategies to look at.
We have this scenario. First, we have this scenario where we don't have any progressive, good progressive sperms, and we are worried that there may be large amount of sperms with some damage, and we have to carry out an ICSI. We can't do IUI. So, do we do any test to look at the viability of the immotile sperms? Are there any methods to rule out any deformities or problems?
Definitely, if you're looking at the different ways in which we can actually select immotile sperms to make sure that they're alive. One is sperm hyposmotic swelling test is one of the possibilities in which we can actually select a sperm which is live. The second thing, probably what we do in a large situations like this, is tail flexibility test, which we found it to be quite effective in selecting sperms in these situations. And there is also, we have these, we can add, I forgot the name, remember, we can actually add these sperm stimulants, which
sperm mobile, pentoxifylline. Okay.
Pentoxifylline, and then probably that can actually stimulate these sperms, and probably you can actually use those sperms which are motile. But otherwise, if I'm seeing motile, even if there is some motile sperms in the sample, I don't need to do all these things. These are done when there are complete 100%.
Right.
We really don't know whether they are live or not. It is in those scenarios that we use these tests.
Very right. So there's a cutoff of 58% for doing this sperm fertility testing. And we normally advocate people to read about semen analysis and issues from this WHO manual. These are the cutoff values which Fesi had covered before. So moving ahead, we have to know what type of case we are dealing with. In case we have a large number of immotile sperms and we have a low sperm count, we are probably dealing with a patient having severe OAT. Always remember that one semen count is not adequate. The semen sample in the male will always, the volume may vary, the sperm count may go up and down like a jigsaw puzzle. It always moves like an ECG curve. In case you get 5 million now or 4 million now, it will become 100 million after 2 months. So we have to take a proper history as what Fesi brought out. Never be in a hurry to treat the patient until we are sure of what we are doing. So now before moving ahead, I have to ask Dr. Sankalp, is there any cutoff values for doing an IUI? Do we have any cutoff values, or we can do IUI in any patient? We get a patient with 1 million post-wash count, can we do an IUI, or we like to move into IVF? So in short, what is the cutoff line? The message we would like to give to everyone, with cutoff line before we move to IVF and not do an IUI.
The cutoff which has been shown by the studies, they vary between 0.8 to 5 million per million of the, what they say is instead of TMSE, they use as inseminating motile count. That is to differentiate between the pre-wash and post-wash. The IMC is used that you are inseminating this amount of sperm. So 0.8 to 5 is the cutoff which has been said. But what is suggested is at least it is needed is 1 million. And it keeps on increasing. The pregnancy rate keeps on increasing beyond 1 million, and it once the count is more than inseminating count is more than 1 million, and keeps on increasing till around 10. And after 10, actually, if the IMC is more than 10, then it dips down again. So bare minimum is 1 million. What we prefer is at least around 2 million to 3 million when we are putting, as Fesi sir rightly said. And if it is less than that, if it is less than that, then we have to think about advising people for going ahead with IVF.
Thank you, Sankalp. Any of the panelists would like to differ or add on to these values in daily clinical practice? Will they shift to IVF at 2 million, or like to shift to IVF at 3 to 4 million? Anybody can take a call. We'll have to have more participation.
So we will always talk to them and tell them that obviously the results are very low. We cannot sometimes insist. We say we would prefer that doing an IVF is better or an XC is better. But I think sometimes at one point of time we are forced to do an IUI with even with very less results, because they will say that, oh, let's proceed with this. So I think practically you might do it, but always put that this thing in front of the patient and let them also take a call on it.
Very good. So counseling is very important here. The cutoff values may vary as per the literature, but we have to counsel the patient because they shouldn't have any false hopes. Okay. Sperm vitality was covered by Dr. Parshuram in detail. There are a few tests by which we can pick up dead sperm from immotile but alive sperms. We have got a vitality stainings, eosin, nigrosin, and eosin. We pick up pink and we can get pink and white sperms, and then we can carry out HOS testing. We can add some sort of stimulants. So having said that, I think we have covered certain things in this case. The take-home message that never be in a hurry to do the case. The patients may demand, but I think we should hold on to our guns until the time we are not ready. We don't feel that patient is doing well. Don't be in a hurry to do a case, because that is incorrect. The second case is now I'll go to some different tangent. Here we have I'll talk about is a guy who is a sweet maker, and we call them halwais in North India. He's a guy who makes very good sweets, and he's goes to a IVF clinic, that is Chadda Infertility Clinic, for inability to conceive for 7 years. There's a guy who's a sweet maker, very fond of eating. He's fond of drinks and good life, and he's doing very, very well for himself. He's a rich guy, and he's 36 years old, a young boy, 126 kg weight, BMI nearly 40. Fun-loving guy, doing very well, but he has some high BP, some occasional blood sugar goes here and there. He doesn't bother much. But now he's unable to conceive, and he's married. He's worried. Can someone tell me? I think we can now start from Dr. Raghvendra. Does obesity, morbid obesity, or such sort of lifestyle disorders, can it affect the sperm count?
Yeah, yes, sir, definitely. When you have obese patient, again, it's like something like what you say, you have more of insulin resistance in them. That is one thing which is very common when you have an obese patient. So you will have hyperinsulinemia, hyperglycemia, which is common, that do affect the semen parameters, especially morbid abdominal obesity. As the picture showed, when you have a very high abdominal obesity, again, it does cause a very defective in sperm motility, and count also is affected. Secondly, when you have a patient with obesity, again, there is a peripheral conversion to estrogen, and this high level of estrogen again can bring down the levels of testosterone. This can lead to again defective sperm count and motility also. And the other cause of infertility in obesity will be probably because of sexual dysfunction.
Very right.
Because of the high level of estrogen. Is another one these patients do face. Obesity, again, all this again will cause DNA damage and oxidative stress, DNA damage, and most of them do end up with poor count, poor motility, or abnormal morphologies also.
So, Dr. Rishi Mohan, how will you manage such a case who comes with reduced sexual desire and who has come to you with the...
So basically, the obesity affects physically the seminal parameters as well as hormonal factors. So basically, you want to have a baseline hormonal levels like a estrogen, testosterone levels for the male, and you definitely have to have a physical examination. There is any tick you have. So the first line always lifestyle modification, and if the testosterone here, yeah, you have to do a estradiol ratio, and always check whether it is in milli. So if it is, I think it's 10, you can go for aromatase like Cansol, or definitely give because this is definitely issue, and there is a decrease in the testosterone. And if the TE ratio is more than 10, definitely less than 10, definitely go for an aromatase inhibitor, like an anastrozole, 1 milligram per day for around 60 days, and parameters once again. Or you can go for even letrozole, that is 2.5 mg per day for 60 days. And definitely hand in hand with the medication.
So I think you're very right that we can, in case the ratio, we have a reversal, we can give the patient anastrozole or letrozole tablets. And it's a known fact that aromatase inhibitors does help, though it is off the table. It is not, we don't have an FDA approval for this particular utility, but we are all using it, and we use it quite commonly. So these endocrinopathies in the infertile
thing. Can I ask one thing? Two things. One thing is that even obesity, what usually it is missed is that how the sexual habit is there, because obesity definitely we must specifically ask for how their sexual habit is. Second thing, I have not used much of letrozole for male infertility. So how long can be? That is the common doubt which will be, how long can we use letrozole in those patients?
Do we have any urologists in the panel today who can take this query, or then I'll give you what I know?
We have been using letrozole since quite few years, and we can use it minimum for 3 months. The only issue with letrozole is that there were reports of effect on the liver function with the aromatase inhibitors. So what was advised is monthly liver function test, but there are no conclusive evidence that it affects, and we have used it for, I would say, more than 100 patients, more than actually 300, 400 patients, letrozole as well as anastrozole, and we have not seen any problems in liver function tests for usage of minimum of 3 months. In some cases, it has been extended, especially in a non-obstructive azoospermias.
Very right. We also use it without doing any particular testing. I normally give it for 2 months, and I use it routinely in my practice. And it does seem to work, I feel. But the most important part is that before we put him on some sort of therapy, what Dr. Lewis brought out was that we have to tell him to have some lifestyle modifications. Losing weight is more important than to put them on tablets. But yes, we can definitely use them. Okay, coming to case number 3, I would like to invite Dr. Shamima Anwar to take this question. We are a 28-year-old male CEO brought by his wife, married for 6 years, a case of primary infertility. The couple is having some sort of erectile dysfunction, and semen analysis is normal, female factor is normal. They've already been to a urologist, and they have taken some libido-enhancing drugs. But the things are coming to a stalemate. They want to get a divorce. That's a problem, and they have come to you. Either they want a child or they want to have a divorce. So I'd like to ask, what would be the diagnosis in such a case? First of all, anybody can take it.
It is erectile, probably erectile dysfunction with a premature ejaculation is there. It may be, as we have to find out what type of erectile dysfunction it is, whether it is a situational, whether it is an organic cause is there or not. We have to have a detailed history actually while evaluating the erectile dysfunction. Because he's a CEO, there is a very high chance that he's under stress, and these factors can precipitate And we are also we have to, because because we don't know his lifestyle, we have to rule out underlying factors like diabetes, hypertension, smoking, any recreational drugs, or any other medications if he is on like some antihypertensives, if like diuretics like thiazide diuretics, beta blockers, etc. And then after, and we can also ask for whether he can have, he is having nocturnal erection or not, to differentiate between the situational and the organic. So depending on the cause, we have to treat it. And premature ejaculation also, if we have to find out whether he's on any, we have having underlying causes, or is it anxiety induced, and treat accordingly.
Thank you so much. What is happening is that when these couples come and we do some amount of counseling, and then we send them back and we advise them IUI or IV. Because we have tried to give them some drugs here and there, with some counseling, tender loving care, it doesn't work out. And finally, after a month or so, we tell them, okay, ye chalta rahega, let's do an IUI for you, because he can give a sample after all. So we go in for IUI, or sometimes, as indicated, we can go in for IVF also. So I'd like to ask Dr. Avasti Kumaran, what is your take home? How do you manage such a case? Do you shift to ART, means IUI or IVF directly, or you like to do something more for this patient? Just come to you with such a problem. The couple is broken, they want to go in for divorce. What is the role of ART in such cases?
Good afternoon. As far as these couple are concerned, they are on the verge of divorce. So really the psychosexual aspect of this is very important, and also erectile dysfunction in an otherwise normal male can be due to the psychosexual causes. So proper psychosexual evaluation and counseling is going to work in them. If the man is suffering from some anxiety issues or a psychosexual factor, serotonin or non-serotonin reuptake inhibitors are going to really help. And
mute the webcast is being on there. Somebody is on the webcast, so that the Shemima's voice is coming in between your thing. It has been occurred for 2 minutes before. Whoever on the webcast, also on your computer or the mobile phone, please keep it in a mute form.
No, mine is on only in the laptop, nowhere else. Yeah, the thing is about the role of art. Regarding the role of art, if the couple decide to go ahead with one another and it is a non-functional cause that can't be treated, then there is a role for stimulation and IUI or art. Otherwise, with proper management, psychosexual counseling and treatment, most of the time it will work out.
Do you have any, Dr. Sharath, do you have any cutoff when you get a couple like this, or anybody can take this query? So, for Dr. Sharath, how do you manage such a case? I mean, how do you counsel them? Anything you do for them, or till what time do you keep giving them tadalafil or depoxetin or all these drugs? Till what time do you give? And then at what time you say no, enough is enough, or no, they must go to a urologist, or you start to do something more, like we give piperine injections in the glands or something. Either we can give it ourselves or we refer the patient. What is the cutoff for that?
Actually, sir, for this patients with the erectile dysfunction, we have to rule out whether it is an organic cause or if it can be cured by psychosexual counseling. If counseling works, or if there is some sort of improvement, we can give ample time for them to go for a natural cycle. Otherwise, we have to further go with the evaluations and then go for a higher treatments.
If they have definite history of some surgeries, penile surgeries, or like that, we can early referral can be done. Otherwise, we can try this phosphodiesterase inhibitors, and then we can.
I think we have to focus on not only on procreation. We have to focus on recreation also. So we have to get the erectile dysfunction corrected.
I think that what Reggie told is correct. Erectile dysfunction must be corrected first, because even if they have the child after childbearing, also they must be having the sexual function must be normal. And for this, I think we have to clearly ask whether erection is defective alone. Then we can give tadalafil or sildenafil. If the erection plus premature ejaculation is there, definitely we can add dapagliflozin. And and if there is the most difficult thing to treat in here is that anejaculation. For anejaculation, I think we can try imipramine. That is the one in which we can get very minimal result with that.
I think you have taken it very, very well. My take-home message for the audience here would be that before we go in for any sort of therapy, quickly, like the gynec did in the first case of IUI, you have to treat the couple in totality. See, we are in a fertility and IVF branch. We shouldn't be shifting to ART directly. I think we should take care and bring the couple together. That's very important for us. Never be in a hurry. Yes, definitely. In case a couple is in doldrums or there are some other indications, then go in for ART directly also. But I think we must make an effort to take help from a psychologist or a counselor or a urologist, because they know more than us in many of the cases, and then we should work up the case in totality. Okay, the case number 4. I've taken a few cases because I'm handling these things nearly on daily basis. They are not hypothetical situations. I deal them on daily basis actually. So we have a Mr. Khan, Salim Khan, a huge following he has, and he's a macho man of the town. He is doing his bodybuilding very regularly. He's got a big muscle and all the supplements which are possible. He is buying for himself and taking them. So he's a very muscular guy and very fit and good looking guy. He got married few months back, and then he came to a doctor. He came to Dr. Sankalp now. I came to Dr. Sankalp Singh and told him, boss, I'm not able to, I'm having some problem. What should I do? My semen volume has come down. I'm not getting proper, I'm having erectile dysfunction. My mind is going bonkers. What should I do? So, Dr. Sankalp, what has gone wrong with this patient? He's a good-looking, fit guy. What is wrong with him, and how will you treat him? How will you manage him?
The major issue in this case might be related to the supplements which this person is taking, because many supplements these days, they come with steroids in addition to the other things, in addition to the proteins, because of the bodybuilding issue. So this testosterone, when it is taken, testosterone is one thing which is absolutely contraindicated when you're trying for a fertility, because it has a feedback effect and it inhibits the GnRH release from the hypothalamus, and it causes actually the infertility due to the effect of the testosterone itself. So the semen analysis goes pretty low, the both all count and concentrations, as well as there is a issue with the hormonal effect. There is a change in the because of the changes in the testis, the quality of the semen also goes down. So the main issue in this case would be related to that. The good thing about it is that it is a reversible thing. So if the testosterone supplementation is stopped, then the situation can be reverted back to normal. But the reversal might take up to a year or maybe more than that. So this is something that we need to counsel the patient and go ahead with the treatment accordingly. And we need to keep on testing the person at a routine interval. And again, because he's feeling very low, so behavioral therapy or a psychological counseling has a very good role in this case.
That's why it has been shown, if you are use testosterone more than 1 month, even if you are in case of loss of libido, if you use more than 1 month, that can produce the decreased sperm count. Most of the studies are like that. I've seen discussed with the urologists. All are telling we can use maximum of 1 month continuously of testosterone.
And moreover, sir, it will affect the Leydig cells. It will damage the Leydig cell.
Yeah, there can happen. Correct, Jitendra. Has any one of you seen a patient of this nature and which goes to a GP or even to a urologist and they give him more testosterone because he's having loss of libido? They add more testosterone. Has any one of you seen such a case?
Yes,
I see them very frequently here.
Yes, more than daily injection, daily tablet, they give us long-acting testosterone injection.
Yeah, exactly.
3 months.
Exactly. No, so now, how do you proceed to treat this case? Now, suppose now Jitendra is here. Jitendra got this patient. How will you handle this case? Because these are few impressions I want to give it to the people, audience, that this is a common thing. Whenever a bodybuilder comes to my OPD, I find that he's having such problems and he's having a lot of supplements. But Sankalp has already given his point of view. You were not there initially, so I'm telling you now. How will you handle?
First of all, I will advise him not to go for strenuous exercise and for the sake of the beautify of body, because that will cause excessive stress on the body and which will release reactive oxygen species, and there will be more chances of injury. Second thing, try to avoid more and more supplement drinks. Actually, some of the drinks which are really means they should consult a doctor before taking the health drink. And third, like testosterone, if they are using simply for beautifying their body, or especially I have seen some cases like film star and all, they used to continuously take testosterone. So that has to be stopped immediately, and we can review after 2 to 3 months for the further parameters.
Thank you so much. Now
So
we are
one
at,
question. One doubt which I had regarding exercise. There were quite a lot of people who use weekly HCG injections for 3 months to increase the muscle mass. They are on HCGs every week or once in 5 days. They take it for 3 to 4 months.
Okay.
So
that's even same thing, LH.
CG I have not
so
seen, but that is a new information. By theoretically,
this
use testosterone, definitely.
Yeah.
But I have not seen HCG being used for that purpose. That's a new knowledge.
Yeah. Supplements.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so I think, you are right. We have to tell counsel and we have to talk. Raj, you want to say something?
Yeah, basically what Raghavan Prasad said is very crucial, because in gym people, what they do is they give testosterone injection, basically depot preparation, and along with that they give HCG. Their logic is that the HCG will counteract the effects of testosterone on the sperm production, because HCG will little bit help in the intra-testicular testosterone production, so the sperm damage may not happen. Rationally, it is correct, but we are actually giving two counteractive medications to nullify the effect. How much practically it is good, I don't know, but it's a very common practice in all the standard gyms.
Yeah, so it's important that we look at the morbid obesity, we look at these habits, and they have to be curtailed. Now we look at Devanand.
Another thing is it will reduce the testicular size also, this testosterone. When you give.
Very good, very good, very good. So now I'll go to the next case. I have, I think, 15 minutes pending. So here we have a guy by the name of Rocky, and he thinks he's a James Bond. And his funda is very clear. हर फिक्र को धुएं में उड़ाता चला गया. He loves his smokes and he enjoys it. And it is him taking a pack of cigarettes from last 15 years. He's fit. He's very stylish. Everyone likes him, and he's favorite of all. Now he's married, but no children. He's not convinced that abnormal semen report which he has got today could be because of the smoking habit. He's not agreeing. He says, I'm a macho man. Everyone wants me. It can't be due to smoking. So is Rocky correct, or you differ from his thinking? Reggie Mohan, I just move to Reggie Mohan now.
Yeah, smoking is injurious to health. That is true only. So again, it has been several papers have been there that smoking, the nicotine content in the smoke as well as the tar content in the smoke will adversely affect the semen parameters. And definitely we have seen that if they quit smoking, the semen parameters improve. And another thing is it not only affects the reproductive system, it will affect all the other things, like it will enhance the atherosclerosis, and it will affect the arteries. It can cause the cerebrovascular accident, cardiovascular diseases. All this they have to be taken care of. And there is an increase in the reactive oxygen species also in all these smokers. So definitely you can ask, and especially if they smoke marijuana and all, and again cocaine, marijuana and all is another important thing. If they that is affecting the semen parameters, and I think they have to quit smoking, and there is no other way to revert the semen parameters.
There are a lot of men who come to you. They say, okay, Abhi, we'll stop smoking, and they'll go to those digital cigarettes, smokeless cigarettes. Any experience with that? Any one of you? E-cigarettes.
Don't have any ability.
No, sir.
No.
No, sir.
No.
Okay. Then we have to see that there is a synergistic effect of cigarette smoking and varicocele. When somebody's got a varicocele and smoking, he does together, then there can be more problems. And this is about smoking. Now coming to the pollution, do you feel that the pollutants? I think Kerala is a very beautiful city. But in case you come to Delhi, you'll find that 4 months in a year, the whole of Delhi NCR is full of smog. You can't see the sky at all. Do you feel that countries like India, a country like China, the developing countries where they have a lot of smog 4 to 5 months in a year? This is the scenario of New Delhi. Last year, this picture was taken. It was hazy for months. Look at the pollution index. This was as recent as last year. If you look on the top, the highest is the red color. The whole of Delhi NCR is actually burning. It is red. So, do you feel that the environmental pollution can lead to low sperm count, or it doesn't affect much?
Yes.
Anybody of we can take this query, Dr. Avasti Kumar?
Hi, sir. Yes, I do think that the environmental pollution all affects sperm quality. Now, the concept is of a healthy male reproductive system or an ecosystem, and anything that affects the general health and worsens it can reflect on the sperm parameters. So, passive smoking, environmental pollution, and all the chemicals that we breathe in that affect our general health is definitely going to reflect on the sperm parameters and the sperm quality.
Very, very good. So we realize that any type
one
of
thing
smoke.
I like to add here that we all know that I think that all these kind of environmental factors, smoking, everything is going to be causing some. For example, in Kerala, place like where we have a lot of these people working in the Middle East, they come and say that okay, probably we're working there, it's too hot there, and that is one of the reasons that the seven parameters are poor. But yes, we know that these all effects, but then what can be done about it? A lot of times we cannot do about it.
Yeah.
Working in Delhi, you cannot say that okay, you relocate from Delhi to some other place and start. You cannot do that. And when I say, people say that in Middle East, because of the heat can cause 7 parameters deficiency. I think none of the Arabs should have children.
Going back to nature is always.
So a lot of times, yes, we know all these things. We can try and make sure that we do everything that is possible, but certain times we'll have to just take it, accept that.
If we can change. We can always bring some positive changes into our lifestyles that can help protect us better. See, masks help. Something like that, something as simple as that can help actually in people in whom actually it is affecting their fertility.
I think usual for all patients it will not be a problem, but those with borderline semen parameters, then definitely we have to tell them to alter the lifestyle. If it is in a hot climate, may not be hot climate, so those are working more in a hot atmosphere. You have to, in the night time, they have to a little bit avoid using undergarments in the night. And like that, few additional, only those patients with borderline parameters, when this fact is added to that, then it will be affecting those patients. We have to advise something to avoid these things. Not the routine atmosphere, hot air, and avoid using the tight undergarments in the night. All those things will be helpful in those patients, I think.
Good. So I think we have to realize that the pollution is working. Yes.
Hello.
Somebody want to add?
It is the rise of the industry. That is the.
Okay, Raghavendra. Yes. Please tell us. Would you like to add?
We are not hearing.
No, we can't hear you, Dr. Raghavendra. We can't hear you.
No, sir. One thing which I would like
Hello.
to add is
there is something called the endocrine disrupting factors, no?
Carry on.
Yeah,
hello.
Prasad, you can speak.
Yeah. No, one thing which I wanted to add was that, see, the environmental factors may not affect each and every person in the same way. It's like how Dr. Parushu said that Arabs are all fertile. Many of the Arabs who are sitting in UAE are fertile, but it is, I think each body reacts differently to the pollutants and pathogens which they are exposed to, and probably the treatment will be a tailor-made approach for each and every individual. Like you said, Delhi is definitely polluted, but even then, a lot of people are still delivering in Delhi. So I think the concept of pollution is definitely affecting the human body, but the level it affects probably might be different for each individual.
Like that, what we have seen is that those people are having exposure to varnish or paint smell, or what we have seen in Kerala is a goldsmith workers who are exposed to acid are having associated sperm parameter dip. But that doesn't mean all will be affected. But if there is if they are affecting their thing, then we have to slightly modify their lifestyle conditions and avoid.
True, very true, very true, sir.
So we should be having a guarded prognosis. Coming to case number 6. He's a guy whom we all envied. Very particularly fit guy, a sportsman. He's a bicyclist and he plays a lot of sports. And he's doing very well, sending his selfies everywhere. He's always on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, wherever he goes there. And immensely popular guy. Good health, sports person, non-smoker, non-alcoholic, no pollution. Health conscious, no, he doesn't take any supplements. A lot of charisma with friends, spent a lot of time on social networking. But after some time, he felt that he's losing his libido. He's having a reduced sex drive and he was labeled as male infertility. The top guy in the college whom everyone envied, teetotaler, doing very well all over the social media, now has become infertile or is having a problem. So what could be the issue with Rahul? I would like to invite Dr. Shamima Anwar for this.
Yes, long hours of cycling is found to produce like arterial insufficiency and all that, and hypogonadism in males. Like they say that about more than 5 hours of cycling per week is associated with such problems. So this may be the problem with Rahul, and he must be,
he's having this problem with the bicycling. He's a sportsman and he's having this problem. Any other sports which can lead to such problem, or is only with the bicycling? You know, he's a footballer. He's a footballer, or he plays baseball. He plays power sports. Can he still have such problems, or is only for the bicycling?
No, the excessive endurance training itself can cause hypoandrogenism because of it can reduce the testosterone, can reduce the libido. So this must be the problem. So he should avoid endurance training and he should limit his cycling hours. That he should be counseled properly.
I think, sir, situations.
And you told that he's in the habit of using mobile phones also. So that is also, many studies have found that mobiles have been associated with decreased sperm count, and so that may be also cause for his infertility part. So he's carrying it in his pocket, and if it is like they say that if mobile is held around 50 centimeters from the groin, and it is significantly harm the spermatogenesis. So even there is doubts that excessive use of Wi-Fi in the environment also has found to have some impact, but it is not proved correctly. But mobiles, it is found. For example, if they are using more than 1 hour per day mobile, that is also associated with the decreased sperm parameters.
Dr. Parsuram, what is your opinion about
all these cyclists? All these cyclists will use tight garments. Okay, so that there is an increase in the scrotal temperature also. Almost all the athletes.
Yes.
Very right.
Sir, I would like to add in this particular situation here is a psychological angle, because see, probably their priorities are very different. They they're very self-obsessed. Primarily, very less sexual activity. Their priorities are different. In a lot of these situations, decreased sexual activity, they don't see. Most of the time, there's a lot of performance anxiety in these group of patients. So I think these people definitely, yes, they need to have some kind of a lifestyle change as far as they're concerned, but I think will require a lot of counseling also, because the priorities can be different in these. Because this is a very common thing, sir, today. I don't think it is not something which is very, very rare. There's a lot of people who have got a lot of stress because they're perfect in every other way. They want, see, the calculation that this, like, it's a very common thing that 3 years they will not try for pregnancy, and the first month they try for pregnancy, they don't get pregnant, they get panic. They'll say that, okay, first month they did not get pregnant, so there is a major issue suddenly that comes to the mind. So all these things are, I think a lot of times in these kind of situations, I always feel a lot of our counseling really helps, and it gives them that extra edge.
Agree with Parshu that priorities are different, especially not only in the sports people, but also nowadays a lot of IT people, their career is given priority over the and they try for only 1 month and they come back. So that they need proper counseling.
Can someone tell me, for the benefit of the audience, that how does bicycling affect? We all have children who are doing bicycling and they all want to ride on the beautiful bikes which we buy for. They come expensive than a bike in our times. So they're buying such beautiful, multiple gears and good cycles they're buying. How does bicycling leads to these problems? Very simple terms. What does it do? What does it do that, let's say,
it decreases
barring the
perfusion.
rising of temperature, anything else which it can do?
The tight garments, dehydration. Dehydration leads to a lot of muscle trauma and release of chemicals into the body that can affect their fertility as well. So that is another issue. The tight garments, sticking to a healthy schedule for cycling and for training, so that it doesn't lead to so much as to lead to hypogonadism. Awareness of that, all this can help them be better.
Very right. So, yes, sorry, Avasti, please carry on.
Yes, sir, that's it. Yes.
So basically, it can lead to the multiple things I like to bring to the notice of all the audience. Our panelists are aware of these things, that it's not only bicycling, which can compress upon which can have a compression of the perineal arteries and perineal nerves. Hot tubs, jacuzzis, heated car seats, laptops, and multiple other activities, football, basketball, volleyball, where they wear tight undergarments, they can all lead to these problems. Radio frequency, electromagnetic waves from mobile phones, laptops can all lead to these issues, so that we have to be careful about, and we should counsel them accordingly. So I am well within the time. We have, I have with me, I think 3 more minutes before I wind off the topic. Before we finish it off, I like to, as we have spoken before, I like to invite all the panelists to give the audience a take-home message. 1 or 2 liners, we have time. So I'll start with Dr. Fessy. I'd like to tell everyone what's the experience, 2 lines for one message, single message for thing which you feel is very important for them to know.
For male infertility, when the patients come, just don't go by one semen analysis. You have to repeat that and take
very good
history and have a detailed examination before deciding what action to be done.
Thank you, Fessy. We have 10 seconds to go. Sankalp, what is your take-home message? Single line for the
pertaining to the environmental toxins, those are highly underrated. And something what we can counsel them to change is simple things like don't eat in plastic containers, less usage of the plastic cups and hot food items containing in there. That can be easily, and washing of the vegetables and fruits. They are very, very critical.
Very good, Sankalp. Thank you so much. Raju, what do you feel? One liner, one statement.
In severe male factor infertility, your trump card is a female age. So don't waste time. Recourse to ART and get the better result out of it.
Very good. Dr. Parsuram, Parsu, anything, 1 or 2 lines?
I think very importantly, any kind of semen abnormalities, what we should always understand and know is that actually we will be able to find out a reason only in 20 to 30% of the cases. So as a doctor, it's our responsibility to find that particular group of patients and treat them. And 70% of them, we will not be able to understand what is the reason. or actually know what is the problem because of which the 7 parameters are poor. So we need to understand that and do the treatment of these patients accordingly. Should not delay it, and giving them time is very important. I think we have even people with very small or very low 7 parameters getting pregnancy. So it's very important that even if there is 7 parameters are poor, we have to give them some time. Not necessarily I'm telling you to give them a very long time, but give them some time for trying is very important, especially like the first patient.
Very right. Dr. Behra, anything from your end?
Sir, first of all, I will advise that first you should change your lifestyle. That is most important in the male infertility, and you should reduce the weight, especially obesity, where you are taking fast foods and all that should be avoided. Second, you should prioritize, like which one should be done first and which one should be done second. So whenever you are in the home, you should more focus on your life partner rather than focusing on mobile and all. And third thing, as you should avoid smoking. Rather, you can entertain yourself with your family, not going for smoking and this like heavy ride for cycling and all. You should avoid as much as possible. That's the message.
Dr. Prasad, one-liner.
Eat healthy, stay fit, and stay fertile.
Okay, great. Dr. Rajiv Mohan, one-liner from your end for the audience.
Yeah, we have several papers have shown that there is a 50% decline in the semen quality and quantity. 50%, especially in the Europe, in the Western countries and developed countries, and it is there in the developing countries also. So another thing is semen quality is a predictor of morbidity in males. So that also has to be it's becoming a mark for predictor of our morbidities like CVA, cancers, all those things. So you shouldn't ignore a poor semen analysis.
Thank you, Dr. Kunju, looking with me with a lot of anxiety. I have overshot by around 3 minutes. Give me 2 more minutes. Dr. Shamima Anwar, what is your call?
Instead of treating the reports, like we have to take the couple as a whole and talk to them, counsel them, identify the lifestyle factors, sexual dysfunction, anything, and go slowly and in a step-by-step manner.
Thank you so much, Dr. Awasthi.
Yes, agreeing with everyone, I would say that it is time to man up. That is, shift the focus to man and bring up his overall health and not just treat his semen parameters. And the second thing is, before going in for a surgical management for male infertility, always freeze standby samples.
Thank you so much, Awasthi. Dr. Sharath, will end with you.
Yes, sir. One-liner I can say is that smoking kills your dream, then slowly kills you.
Okay. So thank you, guys. Thank you so much. I'll go thank Dr. Fesi, Dr. Sankal, Raju, Parsuram, Dr. Prasad, Rajiv Mohan, Shamima Anwar, Jitendra, Awasthi, Sharath, and all the audience there, all the people at the front end, back end, and Kunju. I've taken around 4 minutes more. We've not done that bad, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us, and we all really enjoyed.
Thank you.